I've never told anyone this story. Not my brother. Not my best friend. Not even the therapist I saw for 8 months after everything fell apart. Some things are too heavy to speak out loud, because once you say them, they become real. And once they're real, you have to figure out what to do with them. So I kept it locked up. Hidden in the back of a drawer I never open. Until tonight. Because I think if I don't say it now, it's going to swallow me whole. Her name was Nadia. And she asked me to be her husband for one night. I said yes. And nothing about my life has been the same since. You have to understand who I was before any of this happened, because I think that's important. I wasn't some romantic protagonist. I wasn't the kind of man women wrote poems about. I was 34 years old. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio. I worked as a project coordinator for a mid-size logistics company, the kind of job that pays the bills but doesn't light anything on fire inside you. I ate the same lunch 4 days a week. I watched too much TV. I called my mom on Sundays. I was, in every meaningful sense of the word, ordinary. I liked my life, mostly. I wasn't unhappy. I just wasn't alive in the way I think I used to be, back when I was younger and the world still felt like it was full of rooms I hadn't opened yet. By 34, most of those rooms had been opened. Most of them were empty. I had been out of a relationship for about 2 years at that point. Not broken-hearted. Not bitter. Just drifting. Like a boat with no particular destination. Which, looking back, might be exactly why I was so susceptible to what happened. I met Nadia at work. She had started about 6 months before any of this, transferred from our Atlanta office to Columbus. She was the new regional compliance manager, and our departments overlapped just enough that we were in the same meetings 2 or 3 times a week. The first time I saw her, I didn't think anything dramatic. I noticed she was beautiful, dark eyes, natural hair she wore pulled back loosely, a calm and measured way of speaking that made everyone in the room lean in slightly, like they were afraid to miss something. She smiled rarely enough that when she did, it felt like you'd earned something. But I kept it professional. I was good at that. I had a whole architecture built around keeping things professional. Over those 6 months, we became something I would describe as adjacent friends. We grabbed coffee a few times. We complained about management. We discovered we both hated the same kind of mandatory team-building exercises and would exchange glances across the conference table when someone suggested trust falls. It was easy. Comfortable. Safe. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon in March, everything stopped being safe. She knocked on my office door around 4:30. I remember because I was about to pack up and leave. She came in and closed the door behind her, which she'd never done before. And I knew immediately, from the way she stood, back straight, hands clasped in front of her, that practiced stillness she always had just slightly cracked at the edges, that something was wrong. "I need to ask you something," she said. "And I need you to know that I've thought about this for a long time, and you are absolutely allowed to say no. There will be no weirdness. No consequences. You're the only person I could think of who might actually understand." I nodded slowly. "Okay." She took a breath. "I need you to come to a dinner with me on Saturday night. As my husband." I stared at her. "Not," she added quickly, holding up one hand, "not like that. I mean pretend. I need someone to pretend to be my husband. Just for one evening. It's a dinner with my mother, my aunt, and my aunt's husband who is visiting from out of the country. My mother has been," she paused. Pressed her lips together. "She's been telling everyone back home that I'm married. She's been saying this for almost 3 years. She started it when I was in a long relationship that she thought was heading somewhere, and then the relationship ended, and she just never corrected it. And now her brother is visiting from Morocco for the first time in 11 years, and she set up this dinner, and she told him my husband will be there. And if there's no husband..." She stopped again. "She'll be humiliated," Nadia said quietly. "And she's 71 years old. And she's the only family I have left in this country. And I can't," her voice dipped, became something raw and unfinished. "I can't do that to her. Even though she put me in this position. I can't. I sat there for a long moment. There was a war happening in my chest that I didn't fully understand yet. Part of me thought, this is insane. This is a disaster scenario. What happened when it unraveled? What happened if someone asked a question I couldn't answer? What happened to me in all of this? But there was another part of me, a quieter part, one I hadn't listened to in a long time, that was saying something entirely different. It was saying, say yes. One night? I asked. One dinner. Maybe 3 hours. And your mother knows it's not? She doesn't know anything. She thinks it's real. Nadia exhaled through her nose. I know. I know how it sounds. It sounds like a movie, I said. She almost smiled. Almost. I know. I looked at her for a long moment. The late afternoon light was coming through the blinds and cutting across the side of her face in these long golden lines, and she looked tired in a way I hadn't noticed before, the kind of tired that isn't about sleep, that's about carrying something too long without putting it down. Okay, I said. She blinked. Okay? I'll come. She sent me information over text. Her name. Her mother's name, Fatima. The uncle's name, Rashid, and his wife, Hannah. How long she'd supposedly lived in Columbus. What she supposedly did before compliance work. And one message that I read 3 times. We've been married for 2 years. You proposed on a trip to Asheville. I was wearing a blue dress. You said I looked like the sky before a storm. I don't know why that detail hit me the way it did. I just know that I read it and felt something strange move through me. Like the beginning of a song you've never heard but somehow already know. Saturday came. I wore a dark gray blazer and the nicest watch I owned, which wasn't very nice. I drove to the restaurant, a small Moroccan place on the north side of the city that her mother had chosen. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before going in. When I walked through the door, I saw her immediately. She was standing near the entrance talking to an older woman who had to be her mother, same bone structure, same steady, watchful eyes. Nadia was wearing a dark burgundy dress and she had her hair down for the first time since I'd known her, and I felt something in my chest shift sideways in a way I didn't have a word for. She saw me and the change in her face was subtle, but I caught it. Something in her shoulders released, just slightly. Like a breath she'd been holding. She came toward me. And then she did something that neither of us had discussed. She took my hand. Her fingers laced through mine and she held on, firmly, like she was steadying herself against something, and she turned to her mother and said, in a voice that was entirely calm, "Mama, this is Daniel." And her mother looked at me with eyes that were simultaneously warm and evaluating, the eyes of a woman who had spent a lifetime reading people, and she said, "So, finally." Dinner was surreal. There is no other word. Rashid, the uncle, was a broad, boisterous man with a laugh that filled the room. He told stories. He drank his tea loudly. He asked me questions about my job, my family, my father, and every time there was a pause where I needed to answer, I felt Nadia's hand find mine under the table, just for a second, just a gentle press, like, "I'm here. I've got you." I answered everything as carefully as I could. I talked about my actual family when I could. When questions veered toward our relationship, I kept my answers simple and let her lead. But there were moments. Moments when Rashid said something that made her laugh, a real laugh, not the polished professional version I knew, and I turned to look at her and she was already looking at me, something unguarded in her expression, and we just held each other's gaze for a beat too long. Moments when her mother reached across the table and touched Nadia's cheek and said something soft in Arabic, and I watched Nadia's eyes fill, not cry, she didn't cry, she was too controlled for that, but fill, like a cup about to overflow, and I had to look away because the feeling that moved through me was something I had absolutely no right to be feeling. At one point, Rashid asked me, "What do you love most about her?" The table went quiet. I could feel Nadia go still beside me. I could feel her waiting. I had no script for this. There was nothing prepared. Just the question, hanging in the warm air of this small restaurant, and a room full of people looking at me. And the terrifying thing, the thing that changed everything, is that when I opened my mouth, I didn't have to think. She makes me feel like things matter, I said. Like paying attention is worth it. I'll be in a meeting that's been going on too long, and she'll say one sentence, just one, and suddenly the whole thing has a point. She does that with everything. She makes the world feel more. I stopped. Searched for the word. More precise. Silence. Then Rashid laughed, loud and warm, and said, "Good answer." And Nadia, very slowly, exhaled. But I felt her hand find mine again under the table. And this time she didn't let go. Dinner ended around 9:30. Her mother and Rashid and Hannah had parked on the other side of the building. Nadia and I walked them out, stood on the sidewalk in the cold March air, and watched them go. When their car disappeared around the corner, the performance ended. Except it didn't feel like a performance anymore. That was the problem. We stood there for a moment in the quiet. The restaurant light was spilling out onto the sidewalk. There was music coming from somewhere down the block. She still had her coat pulled tight around her, and she was looking at the spot where her mother's car had been, and her expression was something I had never seen on her before. Unguarded. Exhausted. Relieved. Sad. All of it at once. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft. "It wasn't hard," I said. She turned to look at me. And something in the way she looked at me, like she was trying to figure out something she'd already figured out but wasn't ready to admit, made the air between us feel different. "What you said," she said. "About me making things feel precise." I didn't answer. "Did you make that up?" she asked. "Or did you mean it?" A long pause. The music kept playing down the street. A car went by. "I don't know," I said. Which was a lie. But it was a lie I needed to tell, because the truth was too large for that sidewalk, for that night, for what we were supposed to be to each other. She nodded slowly. She looked down at her hands. "I want to tell you something," she said. "And I want you to know that I know this is not fair of me, because I put you in a strange position tonight and you were kind enough to help me and you don't deserve to have me complicate things. Tell me." She looked up. "I asked you because I trust you. I've never trusted anyone quickly. Not since," she stopped. Started over. "I've been alone here for a long time. And I've been fine. I'm good at being fine. But sitting at that table tonight, with you next to me, with your hand in mine," she stopped again. Her jaw was working. Her eyes were very bright in the streetlight. It felt like something I forgot I wanted. The world went very quiet. "Nadia," I said. "You don't have to say anything," she said quickly. I know what this is. I'm not asking for anything. I wanted you to know. Because you said an honest thing to my uncle and I wanted to say something honest back." I stood there, in the cold, in the light spilling out of that restaurant, and I looked at this woman, this careful, guarded, complicated, beautiful woman who had let me into the smallest corner of her real life tonight. And I felt something inside me that I can only describe as a door swinging open. Not a door I had kicked down. Not a door I had picked the lock on. A door that had been waiting, very patiently, for the right person to knock. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my apartment staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening in the way you replay a song you can't get out of your head. The way she had taken my hand without asking. The way she laughed, that real laugh, the one I'd never heard before. The way she stood on the sidewalk and told me something honest. And I kept coming back to the same thing I'd been avoiding for 6 months without fully knowing I was avoiding it. I had feelings for her. Not the comfortable, manageable feelings you can keep in a box and take out occasionally and then put away again. Real ones. The kind that rearrange things. The kind that make you realize that the life you've been living, the quiet, ordinary, adequate life, has been a waiting room this whole time. And the worst part, or maybe the best part, depending on the hour, was that it hadn't started tonight. It had started 6 months ago, in a conference room, when she made one precise, unexpected observation that reframed an entire problem, and I turned to look at her and she was already moving on, already looking at the next thing, completely unbothered by the fact that she had just quietly rearranged how I understood the room. That was when it started. I just hadn't let myself know. And now I knew. I lay there in the dark and I thought about what it means to perform a feeling so often that it stops being a performance. I thought about actors who fall in love on movie sets, not because the story tells them to, but because you can only hold someone's hand so many times, only look at them that many ways, before the fiction starts bleeding into the real thing. I thought about what she said. It felt like something I forgot I wanted. I knew exactly what she meant. I knew it from the inside. Here's the part one still haven't fully made peace with. We didn't get together. Not like in the movies. Not cleanly, not immediately. What happened is that we went to work on Monday and we were careful with each other. Cautious. Like two people standing near something fragile, both afraid to be the one who breaks it. We talked. We got coffee. Slowly, carefully, honestly, we started telling each other the truth about what we were feeling, in the way that people do when they've both been burned before, when they've both learned that rushing something real is the fastest way to ruin it. What I'll tell you is this: that night changed me. Not because of the pretending, but because of what the pretending stripped away. When you're performing something, when there's no real stake, you don't realize that you're actually showing someone exactly who you are. There was no script for the things I said that night. There was no preparation for the way I felt when she laughed, or when her eyes went bright, or when she took my hand and I understood, without being told, that she needed something solid. I gave her something solid. And she gave me something back. She gave me the truth that something in me had been slowly shutting down for years without my noticing, the part that wants to be known, that wants to know someone, that wants a hand in the dark, not because it's romantic but because connection is the whole point of being here. I think about that night a lot. I think about the restaurant, and the music down the street, and the way she said it felt like something I forgot I wanted. I think about that phrase often, actually, because I think it's the most accurate description of what love, real, unscheduled, inconvenient love, actually feels like when you find it. It doesn't feel like something new. It feels like something you forgot you were looking for. And the moment you remember, the moment someone stands on a sidewalk in the cold and says an honest thing and you feel a door swing open in your chest, you understand that everything before that moment was just you, quietly, without knowing it, making your way toward them. I was her husband for one night. And somehow, that one night taught me more about myself than years of being nobody's husband had. I don't know what to do with that. But I know that I'm grateful I said yes.